Family Dynamic Conversations, where families and stories come in all shapes and sizes. I come from a family of 12. You may be an only child. What matters is caring, sharing, and finding ways to relate to one another. Hello, and welcome to Family Dynamic Conversations. I am your host, Janice Kingsbury. Thanks for joining me today. I have had a few guests on in previous episodes talking about their childhood memories. And I thought, well, I've got a couple to share too. So why don't we dive into that? I'm going to start with summer memories. And the first thing that comes to my mind is going to Lake Washington in Minnesota, just outside of Mankato. Now you have to picture when you have so many kids in a family, there's the group that's the younger group. So it would be Anne, Jan, Jeannie, Donna, Brian, Cheryl, Marcia, Mark, maybe. Not everybody would go at the same time. Sometimes we'd take two cars though, I think when people started driving. But we had this very humpback car and I don't remember the make or model. I will get a sibling on to confirm what type of car this was. But it had big empty space in the back because you could lay the seats down. Maybe you could take the seats out. Not sure, but it did have inside the car this pole that would go across the top of it. And when you're a kid and you're just tall enough to reach that, man, you could pick your feet up and swing, have a great time. But anyway, I digress. So it's hot and sticky and humid in Mankato, Minnesota. When you're growing up, all you want to do is go cool off at the lake. And Lake Washington is the public beach that we would go to. So we'd all pile into this car. We're hot, we're sweaty. We got our towels. Maybe there's an inner tube. Had to be an inner tube. I just don't remember if it was in this car. But we'd all pile in. Mom or dad or both would be in front, maybe one other child, because you could fit 3 in the front, I believe. And the rest of us kids would pile in the back. And we'd drive to the lake. Could take maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20, not sure. But you'd park on that grass. You could see the lake from the car and you're like, hurry up, park. And then you all shove out there and run as fast as you can to that water because you wanted to cool off so fast. And we would run and dive or just jump in and then you would freeze. Like the water would be chilly enough where you would stand up and you'd get all goosebumps and the breeze would come and you're like, oh my God, get it back in the water. And so we would, and we'd play for hours splashing or using the inner tube or I can't imagine being able to fit more than one inner tube in that car, but there had to be a second car involved. I'll get one of the siblings to reconfirm how this all happened. Once we were done swimming, again, I'm sure it would be for hours. Mom and dad would be under a nice shady tree or something, or they'd come in the water for a little bit. And then off to the side, there would be this small cabin or room where you could go in and change. There would be a flat bench around the room so that when you first got there, if you had your bathing suit on in the car, that's fine. But if you had clothes over the bathing suit or you didn't have the bathing suit on, you could go into these little rooms and change and then shove all your dry clothes into the towel and then bring it outside and run into the water. So then when you're done, come back out, grab the towel, all your dry clothes would fly over the ground and then you would change. And that was not fun. I don't know if you remember, but my memory serves as trying to peel off these cold, wet bathing suits. Now, you're no longer in the sun and the warm. You're in this breezy little building that you're trying to keep your towel on. You try to peel off this cold, wet bathing suit, dry off, put your dry clothes on, and then go back to the car and start sweating all over again. The humidity was always high. The heat was always high. That's the fun of jumping in the lake, right? And then we would drive home. And if we were really lucky and we were really good, sometimes we would stop at the old A&W root beer stand. No roller skates. You could pull up and order some frosty mugs of root beer. So good. Or we would drive to the Dairy Queen. For those of you who know Dairy Queen, the ice cream is so rich and so creamy. And after being in the hot car with a bunch of sweaty people, it's so delicious. And the one thing my one sister Donna would more than likely order when she would ask for the dilly bar. The ice cream was dipped into chocolate, so it was a hard shell of chocolate. and it was just a little circle on a stick. And she would love these things. So we all did. It was delicious. I mean, who doesn't like biting into chocolate and ice cream at the same time? But I remember years later too how we stopped at a Dairy Queen at one point, and I think it was the one in St. Peter on the way from Mankato to St. Peter. And we stopped into the Dairy Queen and she ordered a dilly bar like she would normally do. And it was like half the size. I mean, a quarter of the size. It was shockingly small, where we all kind of looked and thought, well, it's the same price, not half the amount of ice cream. So much for the dilly bar. That was checked off that list. That was an epic failure on Dairy Queen's part to cut you out of that ice cream. So that's my fun summer lake time childhood memory. The other memory I'm going to bring up today is the home movie. And this was a handheld 8mm movie that my brothers and sisters would either video or my mom or dad would film us. So you would process this film, you'd get it back on a little reel, and you'd put it on the movie projector. So now these memories are ingrained in my brain because we would watch them several times. One of them was when my sister Ann and I was probably 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. I don't think it was 7, but she's 2 years younger than I am. So if I'm 5 or 6, she's only 3 or 4. Small little things. And we're now living in my grandpa's house in their living room. They had a good amount of space, so we would play around in there. One film that they always show and everybody would get hysterical laughing at would be my sister Ann and I when we were little. Someone was instigating a fight. I'm sure it was probably Steve or Mike or both. So we would run around in this little movie and we'd try and chase each other, and then we'd grab each other and we'd either fall to the floor. I mean, we're little. We're only, 3 feet tall? Not even. Oh my gosh. I just can't believe that they would. I'm sure they were sitting around laughing and, come on, get in there, Janice, and go ahead, Annie Bo, give her a little swing. Maybe you should bite her arm. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it is funny to think back when brothers and sisters would play with the little ones, but their idea of playing with the little ones was entertainment by making them fight each other. I think we laughed during most of it, but I think there were some tears too. It just, why do you do that? Anyway, that's another one that will never leave my brain. And then the movie would stop, the film would stop, and it'd click, 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 click around on the projector. Oh well, movie's done. Everybody's laughing so hard that they're crying. But us poor little girls that were just trying to play with each other were pushed, instigated. Here, fight, fight, fight. So silly. Let me know if you had brothers and sisters that thought it would be really funny if we took a movie of the little ones playing in the living room, only let's see if they'll fight each other, like a couple of crows or dogs. Oh, too funny. The fun thing about those movies, though, these young faces that show up and you can hardly recognize them anymore. They're like, is that Mike? Is that Steve? Is that Marcia? So cute. I think my husband was going to try to transfer them into CDs or to some other digital form of them. I don't know if we ever did. Somebody should do that. Here's one more that I'll leave you with. In my grandpa's house, he had a basement, and in the basement was a cistern. Now, for those of you too young to know what a cistern is, it's where they held their water instead of having a well outside of your house. And at some point, they stopped doing that, cleaned that out, and it was just a big empty space. It was concrete blocks blocked off in the basement, but it was a pretty good size. And eventually, because there's 14 people in this house, somebody had the brilliant idea of breaking down a wall into that room. And I'm sure it was a major construction thing where they had to get a jackhammer or whatever they did, but they broke into this wall and there was another empty space. Well, there's someone else can sleep down there. He had 4 bedrooms in the top floor, but there's a lot of kids and parents and grandparents stuffed in that house. So, hey, another room? Woohoo! So they clean it all out. And the 4 youngest was myself, Jeannie, Donna. I don't know if Anne wanted to be down there or not. It was kind of spooky. There's no windows. It's just a concrete room with 3 full walls and then a crack down the concrete on one wall. Big enough so you could get a bed through, some dressers in there. And we had so much fun trying to figure out what we were going to do in this space. So one thing we did do was paint a window on one of the walls. Just as a, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have windows in this black room? Because, man, you put a curtain over the now formed doorway. It was pitch black in there, which can be fun, which can be quiet and cool, but it can also be frightening because you don't know if there's spiders. You don't know what's down there. So we would drive ourselves crazy trying to scare each other and have fun. But again, it's nothing like having 2 beds and only one person in that bed. Not have to share a bed was magical. What a luxury. So tell me, did you have a room in your house or in an old house that was down in the basement that you refurbished and had fun with? Let me know what your childhood memories are and your stories of growing up, especially in an old house. This house was built in 1922 with a basement and a cistern, lots of dark corners. They did have a fruit cellar and a coal cellar. So that's where the coal was, in that cellar. So the cistern must have been for water. Don't worry. I will find those answers and get back to you on that. Thanks for joining me again at Family Dynamic Conversations. I don't remember those childhood conversations when we were going to the lake. There was probably a lot of screaming and, are we there yet? Kind of thing. But there are stories that belong to me. And that was my perspective on that. I want to hear what you can relate to. Thanks again for joining me. Please take care of yourself. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.